On Tech News Today, Reddit bans a few specific racist communities, but not racist communities in general. Plus, Facebook rolls out its own version of Meerkat, but you can't use it. And it looks like Apple Pay is failing. It's all coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, August 6th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used iPhone, iPad, and other Apple products are worth at Gazelle.com. And by Blue Apron. Blue Apron will send you all the ingredients to cook fresh, delicious meals with simple step-by-step directions right to your door. See what's on the menu this week and get your first 2 meals free by going to blueapron.com/twit. That's blueapron.com/twit. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. My name is Mike Elgin, and our co-anchor today is Fusion editor Kashmir Hill. What's going on, Kashmir?
Good morning from Vegas, Mike.
Yeah, so you're there because you have a horrible gambling addiction, right? Or is it for some other reason?
I do really love blackjack, but I am here for the hacker conferences, Black Hat and DEF CON.
And have you done anything with your phone to make sure you don't get completely compromised and have all your data stolen and posted online?
A lot of people bring burner phones. I usually just put mine in airplane mode and, turn off Bluetooth, turn off wireless. But yeah, the big worry when you come to these conferences is that you're going to go home with something nasty on your device.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. We hope you get through it in one piece.
I'll try not to give it to you if I get it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's jump right into the news. As Megan reported yesterday on Tech News Tonight, Reddit CEO Steve Huffman announced yesterday a new content policy for the site and also new bans on 6 communities, including a racist, white supremacist subreddit. Matt Weinberger is a reporter for Business Insider and joins us now. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. This is a really interesting story, and we're going to get to why it's interesting in just a sec. Huffman pointed out that the banned subreddits didn't actually violate Reddit's policy. So on what basis is he banning these subreddits?
That's actually the really interesting part. He says that they were banned just because it took Reddit moderators too much time and energy and effort to deal with every single day. And that the fact that they existed was causing Reddit a lot of problems with recruitment. So not because of what was on them, but because of what it meant for Reddit as a company, they decided to throw the book at him.
How are Redditors reacting to the banned communities and the quarantine communities?
Oh, they're very calm. They're very reasonable. No, they hate it. It's nothing really new because the content policy is very much in line with what he proposed last month. So there are no real surprises other than those handful of communities getting banned. But they're still not a fan. There's still this very, very big perception that any kind of policing is censorship, is a limit on their free speech. And so there's a lot of unrest right now. But at the same time, Reddit's traffic has never been higher. So maybe that's just a very vocal minority who's speaking up.
The censorship world just keeps getting weirder and weirder. Essentially, once upon a time, things on the internet were censored if the content was actually illegal. And then it became censored in Europe, for example, for the right to be forgotten, when the content was legal, but the link to it became illegal under certain circumstances. And now, and then the fallback, of course, with sites, including Reddit, up until now, was we have a policy, and that policy is something very clear, like if it actually threatens somebody, if there's a threat of violence, or if there's an advocacy of violence, then we ban that. And now we're into a whole new weird world where it's like, oh, anything that causes us annoyance and is time-consuming for us, we're going to ban it. Now, does that mean, for example, that, let's say, pick a religion, wants to ban an alternative religion, and they muster the faithful to go and cause Reddit lots and lots of headaches? Does that mean subreddits about religion would be banned?
No, I think so. Something that Reddit's always been pretty consistent on is that as long as you keep whatever you're doing, let's not even use the religion example. Let's say that it's Facebook versus Google Plus, right? And so the Google Plus guys are getting really agitated, and they want to go, and they're going to go start trouble on the Facebook subreddits. As long as the conversation stays within their subreddit, Reddit doesn't really care, because that's no effort. It's up to the individual community moderators, yada yada. But it's when you start leaving your sandbox to go ruin other people's day, that's when Reddit tends to take action.
And they're not just banning, right? They're banning some communities, but then they're also doing this quarantine thing where they're making some communities basically like roped off from public Reddit.
So that opens its own can of worms, because the idea is you're not going to see some of these quarantined Reddits at all if you're not logged in. And if you do log in, you have the option of manually going and seeking out whatever racist or sexist that you want, right? But you have to manually click to go into it, which is fine. It keeps it away from the public eye. But at the same time, Huffman has said that Reddit's not going to make any money off of advertising from those, which on the one hand, but on the other hand, it also means that Reddit's basically hosting these horrible communities for free, like subsidizing them almost, right? And then it becomes, why do you have them in the first place?
Now, very quickly, why not just ban racist subreddits?
Because they don't want to be, they're afraid that if they start defining things like racism, sexism, misogyny, whatever, that if they set those kind of hard limits, they're afraid of an even bigger user backlash. They would rather take a light hand and not define what is and isn't considered hate speech. You know what I mean? Because then it starts to make some people sketchy, and they're afraid that it'll cause riots, basically, as people wonder what does and does not constitute racist speech or sexist speech.
Yeah, I think that would be better. I think rioting would be better than basically racism that's inconvenient, as opposed to the convenient racism. So
that's kind of that.
Yeah, and so it's a weird policy, and we'll see how he does with that.
Yes.
I'm already missing Ellen Powell, because she was clear and consistent, and now this guy, this is just, and his communication on this was very muddled and weird too. So it's all very strange. We'll see if he gets away with this. Matt Weinberger's at BusinessInsider.com. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we've got some more news coming right up. But first, let's talk about Gazelle. Gazelle is, it's the greatest place to sell your used gadgets, simply because it's so easy. People think, oh no, I got to go do all this stuff. I got to go through this work. How do I do it? Do I have to ship it? I got to the post. No, all you have to do is go to GAZELLE.com. Just choose the device. You just identify the device that you have at your house, in your garage, whatever, and they'll give you a price. You click on that, you go through the simple step-by-step instructions, and they send you a box. You simply take the sticker out of the box, you put the phone into the box, and you put the sticker on the outside that has all the address, the labeling, they pay for the shipping, everything. It's all taken care of. So easy. And another thing that I hear a lot from fans of Gazelle is how much money they give you for your old device. You probably think that some device is worth, what, $50 or something like that. It's probably what you could get if you tried to sell it on Craigslist or something like that. You never want to do that. You go to Gazelle, and it's worth way more than you thought. It's really kind of amazing that they're able to provide the amounts of money that they do. Now, of course, we're all concerned about security, and every new security story makes us think, well, what are the hackers really capable of? If I just delete my data, will it be on the phone, and will the next person get it? And the answer is it will not be on the phone, because Gazelle will wipe the data for free. They really know how to do it so that no hacker could ever get access to your data. So you should always delete your data before you sell a phone. It's just good practice. But even if you don't, Gazelle will take care of it for you. They really know how to do this kind of thing, and they're really, really great at it. Fast processing, no listing hassles. Just go to Gazelle's site, GAZELLE.com, and find out what your phone's worth. Find out what your iPhone's worth. Find out what your Android phone is worth. Just take a minute and go to Gazelle.com to find out. And we thank Gazelle for their support of Tech News Today. Facebook rolled out a new live streaming feature called Facebook Live, and which could be compared to Meerkat or Periscope, but there's a catch. If you're not famous, you can't use it. Jillian Donfro is a tech writer for Business Insider and joins us now. Welcome to the show, Jillian.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming back on. Now, you wrote that Live is not a product, but actually a feature of a Facebook product called Mentions. Can you remind us what Mentions is?
Yeah, Mentions is something that you would really only know much about if you were famous enough to be qualified to use it. And it basically is just a way for people who are really famous to manage all their interactions on Facebook and just make it easier for them to interact with their fans. And so this live video feature is just another extension of that.
And so how are fans going to get notified when there's, a new live video of their favorite celebrity that they can watch?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. If you just like a celebrity, but you're pretty passive, like say I like Shakira like 7 years ago and I haven't really been active about that, then I would kind of just have to happen upon it on my newsfeed. But if I'm someone who liked Shakira 7 years ago, but then like still really like Shakira, and so I've interacted with any of her posts recently, whether it's a comment or a like, then I'll actually get a push notification directly right to my phone anytime she's doing a live broadcast.
Do you see this as a trend? I mean, Apple came out with its Connect feature, which is kind of like a social network for singers and artists, musical artists. You've got this particular thing. You've got all kinds of various elite social networking features. Twitter has something for verified users where they can sort of filter what they see based on whether other people are verified. So they're creating this sort of class system within Twitter where the verified people have certain benefits that the unverified people don't have. First of all, is this a trend? And second of all, is this a disturbing trend in your opinion?
I would say it's a trend for all the reasons you just highlighted. It's definitely something that you're seeing popping up. I don't know if I necessarily think it's disturbing to me, because in some ways I think it's just enabling those people to have actual real interactions with fans as opposed to like having their social media manager do everything. And I'm sure to some extent the social media managers of the celebrities still are doing a lot of the stuff. But say you're famous and there's no sort of filtering system or ways for you to manage all the comments and likes and messages that people send you, I feel like it would just be pretty impossible to ever have real interactions because you would just get this crazy deluge of information. So to me, it's like, okay, it is maybe a little bit unfair that they get certain filtering features that we don't, or in the case of Mentions, like a whole app that normal people don't have. But people want to interact with celebrities in real ways, and I think it's one of the only ways to sort of make that viable.
So how do I become famous if I can't use tools like this to get an audience?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think, you know what? You're probably closer than a lot of us. So
they won't let me use it, believe me.
Jillian, how does Facebook decide? I mean, like in this day and age, everybody has a publishing platform. There are many, many micro celebrities out there who have kind of large groups of followings, even if they're not traditional celebrities. Like, how does Facebook decide when somebody gets this versus somebody who might think of themselves as famous who doesn't get access to this?
That's a really good question, actually. And when you look at the list of people they have at launch, I kind of thought it was a little bit of a weird list. Like, I don't really know what their standards for it are. Like, at least for the video part, I don't actually know their whole list for Mentions, but for the video part, they talked about like Martha Stewart, and then like Ashley Tisdale, and then like The Rock, and then Lester Holt. I don't know. It just seemed like a really random list. So I would imagine that that's something that there will be people who feel like they're left off. Like, I can't really imagine them giving this right away to people who are like Vine famous necessarily, or people who have huge followings because they're YouTube stars. And like, who knows if those people will get access anytime soon. So that would definitely, I would think, be something that Facebook has to try to deal with. And I'd love to find out how they're going to do that, but I actually have no idea.
It's a really interesting point you're making there. And if you're right, what it means is that Facebook, in its efforts to sort of own the future of new media, is using fame on old media as the filter to use their new media thing. Kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
Your suggestion also hints at a sort of, playing favorites between the upcoming world of Facebook video stars, which inevitably is coming, over YouTube stars and so on. So this is all very bizarre. This is like one of the weirdest news days already. We've barely gotten into it today, and already these companies are doing some really weird things. But what are you going to do? It's Facebook. They've got a lot of money to be made, and they're going to make it one way or the other. Jillian Donfro is at businessinsider.com and also on Twitter at Jillian, ILES. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jillian.
Thanks. Have a good rest of your day.
All right, you too. A new report says the use of Apple Pay is in decline. A site called Payments has been tracking Apple Pay adoption in conjunction with InfoScout, which is a retail data analytics firm, and has found that the new payments platform is struggling. Brooke Hawkins is the Director of Media and Content for Payments.com and joins us now. Welcome, Brooke. Are you there, Brooke?
Hi, thank you.
Hi, thanks for coming on. Now,
Yes.
you found that a large number of people who can use Apple Pay have never even tried it. How did you guys, you and your partner, figure this out?
Yeah, InfoScout is they have 4 different apps that they use, and we surveyed about 1,500 people. And the different apps do have different ways of receiving the information, but they just snap a receipt, and that triggers a way for the analytics at InfoScout to discover whether or not users are using Apple Pay for specific transactions, and that kind of triggers some survey data, or triggers a survey for us to ask about 5 to 6 questions about their use of Apple Pay, how frequently, why they aren't using it, how long they've been using it. And this is our 3rd survey, so we were able to really start seeing a trend of this adoption.
So are these apps actually survey apps, or how exactly do they sense that a mobile payment has been made?
They are survey. Well, they're 4 different apps that InfoScout uses. There's Receipt Bin, Shopperoo, Receipt Hog, and Out of Milk. So they range from people actually uploading their receipts to putting in their own their to-do list, their shopping lists, and that helps trigger whether or not where people are shopping.
In other news, there's an app called Receipt Hog. Love that.
Yeah.
Now, your story reported that usage has fallen. So it was low, of course, when it didn't exist. Then there was a spike, and then it dropped. Can you talk a little bit about the trend line here? How is Apple Pay done since its initial rollout?
Yeah, so, well, we've done the survey in November, which was just a few weeks after its initial rollout, and then again in March and again in June. And what we saw was kind of what you would think traditionally would be, because obviously Apple Pay came along in the iPhone 6. So early adopters of people who are going out to go get the new iPhone are more likely to use a feature like Apple Pay, which obviously isn't available in the older versions of the iPhone. So you're seeing the early adopters really start using Apple Pay. The early majority of the people, by March, who went out and bought the iPhone 6 were trying Apple Pay. And then by June, you had the late majority, so people who aren't necessarily looking to rush and get the newest tech gadget aren't using the new tech gadget that's inside of the phone, which is Apple Pay. So it's people who are excited about new technology, are interested in Apple Pay, but the people who, everyday people, which we found was about 3% of iPhone users, of the 184 million iPhone users are using Apple Pay. So that's 97% who are not using Apple Pay.
I was pretty impressed in your story, Brooke, that at one point, 15% of the people you were looking at had actually tried Apple Pay, which I thought was a pretty, high rate for a new kind of odd, product that doesn't work everywhere. Do you think that this particular group that you're surveying tends to be a little bit more forward-thinking with mobile payments, if they're the type that are uploading the receipts and using those 4 apps that you mentioned, or do you think they do reflect the kind of general population of people who have iPhones?
I think at the beginning you saw kind of the more tech savvy people, but what you're seeing now, and as the excitement over Apple Pay and the excitement over the iPhone 6, you're getting kind of the average person because, you know, it is done through these different apps, and people aren't going to these apps with the idea that they're going to get a survey on Apple Pay. So I think you're getting a wider majority of people, a broader spectrum of the population. And it is, I mean, just anecdotally, it is what you're hearing from friends and from people on average just aren't using Apple Pay like you think that like people thought they would when Apple Pay was first announced.
Maybe they should support Android. I mean, I agree with that anecdotally. I mean, I use Apple Pay all the time, and almost every time I use it, the cashier is like, wow, that's really amazing. Like they've never seen it before. So, yeah, I don't think a lot of people are really using it clearly. I think there's a lot of reasons, and I think one of them is that the users are confused about whether or not the store needs to know all about it. So they may ask about it and say, well, do you support Apple Pay? And the person goes, I don't know if we support Apple Pay or not. In fact, you can just throw it up on the card reader and it'll probably work, but nobody knows that.
Well, I think that's what you're seeing a little bit with just the adoption of mobile payments in general. You know, mobile payments really, there isn't necessarily a problem that mobile payments is solving for. So there's really no reason for someone to change their behavior. So that's kind of a problem that you're seeing across the board with the adoption of mobile payments, which we found in the survey because from March and June, in March, 37% of our respondents said that they were satisfied with their current payment method. And that did fall a little bit in June to 32%. But I think people just, it's ingrained in us that when you go to pay for something, you see swipe here. So that's what you do. You just don't remember to use Apple Pay or to use that mobile payment option when it's presented to you because you're breaking a habit, and a habit that doesn't necessarily need to be fixed.
Yeah, I think to me, I think you're onto something there. The problem that it solves is that paying for stuff isn't fun. And using Apple Pay or some other payment is fun at first. And when the fun goes away, I think people just gravitate back to their credit cards or something like that. Well, very interesting story. You can find Brooke Hawkins and payments.com at payments.com and on Twitter at payments. And you need to know that payments has no vowels. So it's P-Y-M-N-T-S. So that's payments.com and payments on Twitter. Thank you, Brooke, so much for joining us on Tech News Today.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye, Brooke.
You've read the biographies of the late Apple co-founder and CEO Steve Jobs, and you've seen the movies, and you got another movie coming up. But now there's an opera about Jobs that's going to open soon. It's called The Revolution of Steve Jobs, and revolution is in a parentheses, so it also is the evolution of Steve Jobs. And Majed is the classical music critic for the Washington Post and joins us now. Welcome to the show, Anne.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Thank you so much for coming on. I think you're our first classical music critic on this show. So congratulations. You're really doing some groundbreaking here. Now, why would anyone want to create an opera about a guy who, let's face it, mostly just went to a lot of meetings?
Well, you know, we've had operas about Anna Nicole Smith. We've had operas about Richard Nixon. We've had an opera about Harvey Milk. So the opera pool is wide. And opera houses are looking more and more for relevant topics that are going to draw in people who aren't necessarily interested in opera. And the response to this announcement already has been nicely controversial for the Opera House. Added to that, they've put this opera in the hands of a composer who is tech savvy, Mason Bates, whose alternate profession is as DJ, is known as DJ Masonic. So he has one foot in the world of electronica, one foot in the world of classical music. And that, of course, is an interesting basis from which to proceed when you're writing an opera about a computer genius.
What kind of Jobs opera do you think he's going to create, given that background?
Well, there was a energetic debate on Twitter this morning about this opera because some people were like, oh my goodness, everybody's selling out to write a Steve Jobs opera. And Mason himself, the composer, popped up in my Twitter feed while I was waiting for this call to say that he didn't want to do a biopic. It wasn't just going to be an opera about Steve Jobs. He wanted it to be nonlinear and funky, I think. I took down the tweet, but nonlinear and unusual. So I think it will be creative, to say the least. And I'm almost certain there will be an electronic component, since a lot of Mason's work does have that.
I can't wait to hear the musical version of the iPhone launch. That's going to be awesome. Now,
yeah, are there going to be singing iPhones in it?
I can't wait to hear, but if you're going to write an opera about Apple, of course you better have iTunes there. I would hope you do something creative. Now, there was an opera at the Metropolitan Opera a couple of years ago called Two Boys by Nico Muhly, and that was supposed to be about the dawn of the internet, and it was set in the very early 2000s about two people meeting in a chat room, and Muhly attempted to sort of portray musically what the early internet sounded like, and those were actually the best parts of the opera. It was very, very much worth hearing.
Now, just to inject a little bit more cynicism in all this, do you think that this was truly inspired by the life of Steve Jobs? Is that so inspirational? Or is this kind of a publicity stunt to find a new audience? And in fact, if it is the latter, it's a brilliant move marketing-wise because, of course, Apple fans are legion and wealthy, and, this is going to, the creator, Mason Bates, lives in San Francisco, right? So it could open there. So do you think, how much of this do you think, given what you know about Mason Bates, is inspiration from Steve Jobs, and how much of it is just shameless marketing?
Well, there's a lot of publicity stunt is the wrong word. Every opera house is looking for a hook. A lot of times they turn to famous movies. You have Dead Man Walking the opera. You have Cold Mountain the opera. But Mason is a really serious composer. He just finished 5 years as composer in residence with Chicago Symphony, which is arguably the greatest orchestra in America right now. He's a highly serious, very talented composer, and I don't think he would take something on that didn't really speak to him. I think he'll do something kind of wacky and wonderful with it. But does it help to have a controversial hook? Of course. When Mark Anthony Turnage wrote the opera based on the life of Anna Nicole Smith, there was a very satisfying brouhaha in the press leading up to it, made even more spicy by the fact that the estate of Anna Nicole Smith was a little dubious about the whole thing and made a couple of problems.
Well, I don't know if this is going to succeed or not, but it's probably going to succeed better than the Steve Wozniak opera. So we'll see how this does. And I thank you so much. Anne Midgette is at WashingtonPost.com, and you can find her on Twitter at Classical Beat. Thanks again for joining us today, Anne.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Product update news today. We have Google's cloud-based presentation app called Google Slides. It has a new feature that lets you present from any Android phone or tablet directly into a Hangouts video call. This is really cool. With the Android device, you can advance the slides, see your notes, see who's on the call, and also track the time. This is really great for doing online presentations. Kashmir Hill, I really love the idea of doing presentations, whether it's live or whether it's online, from a phone.
Yeah, and Google Hangouts just keeps getting better and better as a business service. I really am impressed by what they've done with it. Though I mostly just use the feature where I can put cat ears on people's heads while I'm talking to them.
Nothing wrong with cat ears or the little devil horns or whatever. What they really are missing, though, is the ability to launch Hangouts on air from a mobile device. And then they have a Meerkat killer. They could have done it 3 years ago, I think. I think they could have done it. I don't know what the technical issue is, but they let that get away from them, that whole trend. And now Facebook's even got one.
And what I like about this is that, right now you could kind of share slides, but you had to do it by sharing your screen, which can always lead to mishaps. So I like the idea of just having the ability to directly send into the video what you want to send into video and not your whole screen. Yeah,
because you never know what's going to pop up. Well, in product obituary news, about 2 years ago, Samsung launched a project internally codenamed Perfect Experience, or PX. The goal was to replace the TV remote control with a custom-built tablet that would show both on-screen TV controls and also TV listings, and mostly for streamed content. The project was being developed mainly by former Boxee staff. Now, Boxee was a social TV app which Samsung acquired 2 years ago. Yesterday, we learned that the PX project has been terminated with extreme prejudice. Reports suggest that the project was killed both because of the challenges of getting buy-in from content partners and also because of internal Samsung politics. Kashmir, what I'm hearing is that the Korean people back at HQ in Samsung were resentful and bitter about this US-based team that was creating this very central product that would kind of dictate the experience of a wide number of Samsung products. And so that was one of the big problems with this. Personally, I think it sounds like a fantastic idea.
I mean, it sounds, I love the idea of a really good remote control, given all the different places that we get media from. But I also think it speaks to kind of the death of the television, given that so many more people are basically getting their entertainment through their computers or through their phones. You can do this with Chromecast. You can just send it directly up there. So I wonder if it was kind of a losing bet to try to get people to buy a new piece of hardware to do what they can already kind of do with their phones.
Yeah, that's true. And, the death of television, I say good riddance to it. I don't think we need it. It's just another screen, and we should think of the TV that way, I think. But that's just me. The Hollywood would disagree with that. Well, we have some big numbers for you coming up in just a sec. But first, I'm going to talk about Blue Apron. Blue Apron is going to put really, really delicious food on your table, and you're going to prepare it. If you're not that great of a cook, don't worry about it. Blue Apron will hold your hand through the entire process to make amazing food. This is great if you've got somebody in college. It's a great gift to get them a subscription to delicious food through Blue Apron. It's great for people who think they have no time to cook, because you can prepare these meals in a half an hour, 35 minutes, maybe 40 minutes at the most. And these are really, really kind of elegant, tasty meals in every single case. You can order these meals while you're on vacation, no matter where you are. Sometimes if you go to like an Airbnb place, which I've done dozens of times, they'll have a kitchen with all the cooking stuff you need. You have everything, but you don't want to go to the store and buy packages of things, and then you have all these leftovers that you can't use. With Blue Apron, you can just bring the whole box. As soon as it arrives, just bring the whole box with you. And you can cook while you're staying at an Airbnb or a hotel that has a kitchen or whatever. It's so convenient, and it's a great way to teach people how to cook. If you've got kids, it's a great way to teach the kids how to cook, because they'll be having fun doing real cooking. I mean, this is like the real deal. And if there are things that you don't know how to do, the instructions say, well, do this. And if you don't know how to do it, you can use their app, or you can go to their website and see very clear, really high production value videos that will tell you exactly how to do all of these cooking techniques. Such a great service. Blue Apron is a better way to cook. And you can check out this week's menu and get your first 2 meals free by going to blueapron.com/twit. That's right, 2 meals free just for going to blueapron.com/twit. And we thank Blue Apron for their support of Tech News Today. Well, here's a big number for you, 1 million. That's how many paid digital-only subscribers the New York Times now claims to have. This is in addition to another 1.1 million people who subscribe to both print and digital. Kashmir, I'm guessing that the people who have both print and digital are probably mostly print and don't really pay that much attention, but that's just a guess. But these digital-only people, those are digital people, and that's 1 million. That's a pretty good circulation number, I think.
I am one of the print and digital New York Times subscribers.
So am I.
One of the, yeah, so I still get the Sunday paper, and I mostly read the New York Times digitally. And I think their little, you've reached 10 articles for the month, you need to subscribe message must have worked with, 1 million others.
Yeah, so if you read it digitally, what do you do with the paper version? Do you have a parakeet or something like that?
It sits there, and makes me feel guilty in the morning, like I need to read it. I love the New York Times Magazine, actually. Yeah. It has gotten so good. Oh, yeah. It was not so good a couple of years ago, and they really have compelling stories in there now. Yeah, I love Science Times. I love the week in review. I love the book review and all that kind of stuff. I also subscribe to the book review podcast. Yeah, it's a top shelf organization, I tell you. But I pretty much don't recreationally read the New York Times electronically. I do it for preparing for the show, but I like to read it on paper. I love to get my eyes off the screen for at least an hour or two a day. I totally agree. So 1 million people as digital subscribers is great, but it's also like, wow, that's a small number of people given how dominant the New York Times is as a news source. It seems relatively small when you look at the world population and who knows about the New York Times and probably reads them regularly. Yeah, and it took them 4.5 years to get there. So it's an uphill battle, but they're trying. I don't know what that adds up to from a revenue point of view, or if it's even worthwhile. But at least they're trying, and at least they reached a pretty interesting milestone. Well, in news you can lose, Tesla CEO Elon Musk previously said that Tesla was working on a car charger that, quote, automatically moves out from the wall and connects like a solid metal snake, unquote. Turns out he wasn't kidding. Here comes the video. Okay, so we're in some kind of shiny garage. There's a red Tesla there it's got a blue light around the
electrical charging ring. Here comes this elephant trunk looking thing coming out of a box on the floor.
I feel like I'm watching tentacle porn right now, Mike.
Yeah, yes. This is, the Japanese are going to love this. Wow, look at that. Is that creepy
amazing.
or is that really creepy? What do you think, Kashmir?
It looks a little creepy.
What's creepy about it is that it's, of course, it's using, I don't know, visual recognition or something to find the plug. And so it's like it's thinking. It's like almost like it's sentient.
I just love how lazy we can get. We can just, one day when we all have our electric cars, we'll just be able to pull into spaces and our personal little coil snakes will come down and insert themselves into the car and we don't even have to think about charging.
And when it's self-driving car, I mean, it's like we can just basically have the car go do errands for us. We don't even have to be in it. Prediction, Wired Magazine will have an article about somebody hacking this and hackers will be able to electrocute people remotely.
I need one of these for my iPhone, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Right, maybe a smaller one would be good. Our TNT fan of the day is Neil Mitchell, who posted this picture on Google+. He says he's watching Tech News Today while his dog is sensible enough to engage with the real world. Well, I don't know about that. We have dogs who watch the show. It's not that unsensible. And there you are, Kashmir Hill. I think that's when you were in the near the front door of the office space there. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Very nice. Show us how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup. Do it right now because you're watching right now. And post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook. Use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT so we can find it. Kashmir Hill, what are you working on these days? What are you thinking about these days? You're always doing interesting stuff. So what's going on right now?
Right now, I'm just trying not to get hacked while I hang out with all these security researchers. But yeah, I'm thinking about a story about what it's like being here and why people come here and what they accomplish. I mean, the really big news this year was the Jeep hack and Chrysler recalling 1.4 million vehicles because they were insecure, and that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I saw a headline go by on Twitter today, which kind of made me scoff. And the headline was, "Are hackers good guys or bad guys?" And of course, the answer is yes. And they're all there. So it's the only way to defeat hackers is with more hacking, basically. And so this is just the world we live in. It's just amazing. I think especially during shows like this, how many hacking stories come out. It's gotten to the point now, Kashmir, where I go through the news and I'm like, well, yeah, so what? The Pentagon was hacked. Hackers completely took over the U.S. government. Big deal. Happens every day. It's things like that. It's just become such a banality that it's almost not newsworthy anymore unless it's a really big hack.
I know. I feel the same way. I think it's fully sunk in that we live in an insecure world. And if somebody wants to go after something, they can probably find something wrong with it. So it's a question of I don't want to freak people out all the time. I want to tell them about things that matter to their life. And so that's where I think the Jeep story, was a good one. It told people you're driving a car that could be targeted. The scary thing, so those two hackers did their presentation yesterday, and they said it's much harder to target a specific Jeep because you have to find the IP address for that Jeep. So it's easier if you just hack them all. And that is terrifying. That it's just like the easier thing is to go after lots and lots of devices rather than just one.
Wow, that is incredible. That is absolutely incredible. And, the other thing is it's really not clear to me whether people are overly freaked out about hacking or not freaked out enough. I mean, we constantly talking about these horrific stories, including, smartphones being hacked and so on. And then we come out with a story about a secure phone or something like that. And people are like, I don't really want the secure phone. I don't really want to use the secure device. I don't really want to use the secure stuff. And people are not freaked out enough to actually take action, which is another astonishing attribute of this whole ongoing story. So
yeah, the best security technology is easy security technology. If it's hard, people just won't use it.
Yeah, absolutely, or expensive. Kashmir Hill, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
All right, bye-bye. And good luck. Subscribe to Tech News Today by going to twit.tv/TNT and clicking on either the subscribe to audio button or the subscribe to video button, or both. You can also watch us live every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1700 UTC at twit.tv/live. And you can follow us on Twitter at Tech News Today TV. Follow me at elgin.com. Also, don't miss our other news show, Tech News Tonight at 4 p.m. Pacific, every single weeknight. Today's guest is Megan Rose Dickey. So we're going to have two Megans today on the show. She's a reporter from TechCrunch. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Tech News Today. This show is produced by Jason Cleanthes and edited by Anthony Nielsen. My name is Mike Elgin. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.